Hi there, and welcome to another episode on the Let's Talk Wellness with Shal podcast. My name is Shalini Tyagaraja. I'm a corporate tech leader and a wellness coach. The vision of this podcast was to share my experiences and lived learnings, but I also expanded this to include experiences from global practitioners around the world and to hear and learn from them. So today, I'm very excited to have Mark join us, and also a very important topic. And I know this has come up a lot for me in my spiritual readings and journey, and I'm sure for most of you. So, the topic for today is the power of sadhana, yoga, discipline, purpose, and spiritual growth. So I'm sure Mark is going to talk all about what is sadhana if you're hearing this for the first time. And just a quick introduction, Mark Berger is a yoga teacher, storyteller, retreat leader, athlete. He's a founder of the NOLA Fest in New Orleans. Mark has spent over 2 decades helping people reconnect with movement, health, purpose, and community through yoga, functional fitness, meditation, and conscious living. Having studied in India and across the United States, he blends ancient yoga wisdom with modern wellness practices in a way that is approachable, playful, and deeply authentic. So today, we will explore sadhana, conscious practices, travel, storytelling, and how wellness can become a way of life. So, welcome, Mark.
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. And I know I'm super excited to also share that I have your book here with me, Sadhana. And I know I still have to get to the reading part of it, but I did take a quick glance and it was actually awesome. So thank you for sharing. And I know your book just recently came out as well. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the details as we go through some of these questions. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here.
of course.
All right. So my first question, I know, you studied in India, and of course you live here in the United States. So I would love to know when and how did your first yoga experience begin, and how did it evolve into your life's work?
So I've always been an athlete, and after college, I was a little overweight, and I needed to start getting into more movement practices. So I started doing endurance stuff. So a 5K turned into a 10K, and then a half marathon, and some triathlons and Ironmans, and it kept going. And I was young, and I was really excited. So like I just kept moving and moving and moving, and not doing anything to recover and rest. So I started getting IT band syndrome, which is like a pain, like a stabbing pain in the side of your knee. And I used to do speed work with a little group and my coach at 5 a.m. in the morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Most people thought I was crazy enough to be like going run at 5 a.m. in the morning. But then my coach was like, well, I do yoga at 4 a.m., so you should start doing that to get rid of this IT band pain. So now I'm not only going run at 5 a.m., I'm going to my coach's house at 4 a.m. to stretch. And so my friends are like, you're going to some old guy's house to put your legs over your head, you know? And then I realized, like, after I was like, oh, there's yoga studios and stuff like that. So it was really just a physical practice at first. I knew I could recover better. I knew I could heal. I started, because I was always into sports, I started feeling like, oh, I can get strong from this too. And so the first part of my journey was just all physical. Not really understanding yoga yet. I wasn't teaching. So it was just like, hey, let me see what I can just throw into my routine right now so I can get back on the road, start running, biking, and swimming again.
Got it. Okay. And I mean, you often speak about community and connection. So why do you think yoga festivals, retreats create transformational experiences for people?
I think the main thing is that people can get away from the real life. And I say real life in quotations, so there's still real life to go in these things. But when I was in India and I was in front of who I consider my guru now, her name's Sadhvi, and she was saying, yeah, it's really easy to sit next to Ganga or in the Himalayas and meditate and do your sadhana. Um, but it's how do you take those moments and you bring them back into the real world? And so I think these retreats and these festivals, they're a good way to just like kind of tap in, and it helps you to be a little bit more introspective. So when you go home, you can take the things that you were doing there and then just little by little put them into your practices. And then hopefully it turns into bigger things. But a lot of times, you know, in my book, I talk about I was doing a challenge with some of my first cousins. It was like the beginning of the year, and none of them really do a bunch of yoga and stuff, and none of them meditate. And so I said, hey, we're gonna do 5 minutes of meditation. And I got a kickback. I don't have 5 minutes in the day. And I was just like, how much is this person scrolling on their phone or just watching TV or all these other things? So I think in my own experience, it took me going to India to learn how to sit still. And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it is to go on a retreat. You can get a coach. You can do it right in your own home and just have discipline to do it. But it took me going to a yoga training there when the teacher said, hey, you have to sit here for 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, well, running is like my meditation. She's like, no, sit down and shut up. And this is what you're going to do. And, I grabbed my beads. I was like, okay, I'll do japa first. Like that's easy for me to do this. I can't just sit still. And then finally one day it just clicked. And it was just like, oh, I can sit still. It's not going to be easy. I know things are going to come in and out of my brain nonstop. Can I breathe through it? Can I try to just let it pass? And can I just like not think about everything else in the world or how my body feels? And yeah, and now this is like an everyday thing. I don't know the last time that I skipped meditating unless I was like, say, on a plane from India, coming 24 hours or something. But I still try to like get 5 minutes at least in the airport or something like that.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's super important. I mean, at least I can speak for myself, but I do have this morning routine, which is what starts my day and how I feel. So I guess, as soon as I wake up, I spend at least 10 to 15 minutes in some kind of breath work and just quiet time, right? And again, for people, that's meditation. For some, it's chanting, but whatever suits the soul, I call it. As soon as you kind of wake up, I think everybody needs that time. So,
Right.
yeah,
And,
so I
and I
appreciate
think
you
the way
sharing that.
the way that you start your day is usually how your day is going to go. So if your alarm goes off, like right when you need to get up, and you hit the alarm, or you go back to bed and hit the alarm again, and then you start rushing, whether you have kids or whether you're just trying to get to work or all of the above, and
Yep.
you didn't take any time to slow down for yourself,
Mm,
your day's going to be rushed. You're going to get to the end of the
yep.
day. You're going to probably feel even more exhausted because you didn't take that extra time to maybe do a couple little things that you need to do, or just to meditate or breathe or pray or whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, you're tired and you don't want to do those things. And it's this revolving wheel
Yeah,
where you're not going to be able to get to the next season of your life or even maybe the next day of your life, adding those things that really matter. So
that's true.
sadhana is really everything. And I really think that sadhana is not just your morning routine, it is everything in life because if everything in life is divine, then we should give reverence to it. So everything is spiritual. And so our spiritual routine is from waking up to the time we go to bed and everything in between.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I think we'll come to the sadhana part a little later. But so you blend yoga, functional fitness, I don't know, you said endurance training, meditation. So how do these practices complement each other in holistic wellness?
When it comes to yoga, I don't look like the normal yoga guy. I'm like, I was given, did you meet Manoj at this Sedona Yoga Festival? The guy with all the Murtis?
Uh-huh.
Um, so years ago, when I met him, he gave me Hanuman as my archetype.
Manoj. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he gave me Hanuman as my archetype. And, I'm like this kind of sort of burly guy, not that big, but I'm also very soft and very open-hearted. And so for me, what makes all these things complement each other is we know that resistance is something that we need to do in our life. And sometimes just in yoga asana, and there's so much different asana, and obviously there's like some yoga asana that's extremely vigorous. But if you're just meditating and that's part of your yoga practice, or maybe you're just doing a very soft thing, we still need to put some resistance behind things. So for cardiovascular health, maybe it's cardio, or maybe it's our muscles and our bone density. It's lifting a little bit of weights. And truthfully, you can usually use your body weight and still get a lot out of it if you know what you're doing. So, movement is medicine. And the more that we can do it, like I probably average 75 minutes a day at least in movement. And then for my work, I'm also moving all the time as well. So I really think it's just important that everybody has a movement practice, and
Yeah.
you'll see your yoga practice get better from doing a cardiovascular exercise or from strength training. And, pranayama, if you learn how to breathe, let's say in yoga, you can breathe better running, and vice versa. If you have a cardiovascular system that's built up, you'll be able to breathe better when you're like trying to hold a pose. So I think there's just so many things. Some people will think that like, oh, I can only be this or I can only be that. And I want to say that you can be all of them as long as you like what you're doing, right? Like, don't just go do it because you don't like doing it, but find those things that you like to do. And it might be trial and error, but you just keep pushing through it and you see what works. It's the same thing with meditation. You sit for 5 minutes and hopefully you get to six the next day. And it might take you doing guided meditation. It might take you doing japa or something, but you just got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Got it. No, I love it because I feel, I guess I can also kind of share my part of experiences because, yes, I've been doing yoga for a while, but I know just recently, over maybe a little over 6 months ago, right, I started some strength training in a smaller cohort. And so with like a personal trainer, etc., I can definitely tell that, oh my gosh, it has made a big difference just in terms of how I feel, right? Just with my own body, but at the same time, lifting weights, which I thought, oh my God, I can never go beyond like 20 pounds. And just a couple weeks ago, I actually did like 70 pounds on my back squat. And I was like, wow, I never even dreamt that I could
That's
actually
awesome.
do that, right? So I think our body just amazes us, and we just need to give it the opportunity and the discipline, right? So I think
Right.
that's really the key part. So no, awesome. Thank you. And then you mentioned you've studied in India, you've traveled extensively. So what lessons from the Indian yogic philosophy actually stayed with you deeply? And also I would love to take a step back and for you to share like how did this, I'm just fascinated, but how did the journey to India, even come about in your life, and what was that trigger, and how did that all happen?
So I'll kind of give you my yogic journey. So I told you at first it was very much a physical practice. The
Hmm.
second part of that yogic journey, I got left pretty much at the altar. It was 2 days before by my fiance for her triathlon coach who I was paying for, which really hit me hard. So I really got into asana more for mental things. Obviously, I was pushing my body, but I needed it for my mind. And then the second or the third part of my yogic journey, I went to the yoga studio and found out my partner had stole a bunch of money from it. And it was a very just toxic thing. I was like trying to go through attorneys and stuff, and I was like, swaha, let it go. And a friend of mine sent me to India to do a training. She actually paid for it. Her name's Dana Flynn. I owe her a lot. And the first night sitting in Ganga at RT, Sadhvi, who I consider my guru, comes out and she's like, "Welcome to our spiritual happy hour. It doesn't matter who you pray to, just have love and devotion and be here in community with us." And it was the thing I really needed to hear. My mom's Catholic, my dad's Jewish, and they didn't push religion on me, but I'm here for a yoga training, and I'm in, one of the most holy places in the world. And it was kind of the message I had been looking for. And from there, it just made me, like I said, go from the physical to the mental, and now this became much more of a spiritual practice. And that made me just like dive in deeper. I had no idea what they were chanting and saying. And, within a year, I had my own harmonium. It was just like I was all in. And at the same time, I wasn't going to give up a lot of the practices that I was already doing. So, like you said, I've been a yogi for almost 20 years now. And in the South, most straight men do not do yoga, you know? And so some guy who's a weightlifter and an athlete and stuff is now online and he's chanting mantra and playing the harmonium. Um, it people thought I was a little weird, but when I tell you it's brought me the most peace, and I've had like, I do some life coaching too, not a ton, but I've had like some big like CEOs come to me and they're like, Mark, I think some of the stuff you're doing is really awkward and weird, but there's like this peace and happiness that you have. And Puja Swami Ji, who is the Swami at Paramartha Nikatan in Rishikesh, he has this saying that um, you can be in pieces or you can find peace. And
Oh, I love that.
that kind of just sticks with me. And I think
Yeah.
so many people, no matter how much money they have and success that they have, they're in pieces. They haven't figured it out. And I'm not saying that Eastern or Indian practices are the only way to do it, but they've been doing it for over 5,000 years, right? There's something to this magic, and it's coming back little by little. Um, and it's for me, my dharma is to be a bridge, and so hopefully I can bridge what I've learned and bring it to the Western world and meet people where they're at. Because I'm not going to go and say, hey, you need to just start chanting in Sanskrit and this is going to change your life. It might, but that might not be their thing, right? Whether they're Christian and they need to sing some church songs or whatever it is, they just need to find their way in. I really think that that's kind of been my dharma, from the divine is to say like, hey, there's other ways to do this. There's softer ways to do this, and we don't have to keep grinding every day. Even though I think sadhana it can be a grind because like you need to have discipline and tapas to do this.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, work for all the success in the world. And like I said, you're still in pieces and it didn't get you anywhere.
Yeah. No, wow. That's powerful. Yes. Pieces versus peace. It just, it's very different. So, nope, no, that was a great way to break that down. All right. So from there, now we'll talk about sadhana because I guess, like I showed at the beginning, I did buy your book, Sadhana,
Thank
and
you.
of course, I'll share this with the audience in the link as well. But so I want you to just share a bit if folks are obviously hearing the word sadhana for the first time. I mean, what does that actually even mean, right? And then I would love for you to, just share a bit about your book and what inspired you to even write this book at this stage of your journey in life.
So sadhana means your spiritual routine and the practices that you put into everyday life. Like I said before, everything, if you look at everything spiritual, you're going to give it reverence and respect. And so I've been doing corporate wellness talks for a long time, and I always had this thing of like, how do you make your life happier and healthier? And I threw in some yogic stuff and just threw in kind of like what my daily routine is. And one thing I don't want to be is dogmatic and say this is the only way to do it. In my book, many times I say, look, these are just options. And let's say I give you 100 options in this book. If you were to just take one of them and put that into your life, then you're doing already a little bit better. And in the book, after every chapter, there are like 15 to 20 questions. Truthfully, this book is a very easy read. The hard part of the book is reflecting what you read and then being introspective and thinking about in your own life, what do I need to add? What do I need to subtract? And how am I going to do this? And so after doing these lectures, I always wanted to write a memoir. I've got a very interesting, colorful life. And I do share stories in here and share a lot about some of my friends and family that have changed my life and that have really supported me. And at the same time, I was like, the memoir is not what I need to do. I need to like put this out there so more people can have it. And like I said, if you
Mhm.
just take one thing from the book, then I think I've done my job.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I guess I just took a quick glance. Of course, I've not read it in detail, but I just felt like, just reading even one or two pages, I just love how you've just simplified it, right? Just for anybody who's probably never heard any of these terms, I still feel they can relate to it and think through the journey. So, thank you. And I'm super excited to just actually finish and definitely write a review and share it with you.
Thank you.
But no, this is awesome. So I think, the next question I have here is today's fast-paced world, like we all know it. Why do you think people are actually craving deeper spiritual or conscious practices?
I think that we all grow up and we're told what things need to look like, who we need to pray to, where we should be at a certain point in our life. And the only person that you have to live with the rest of your life is yourself. And if you can't hone in to the practices that are going to make you happier and healthier, um, it's going to be a tough road. Life's already tough, right? But it's as tough as you make it. And so, kind of forgot the question, but um, I,
That's
I
okay.
really
It's just
think
about why are people craving spiritual,
that
practices more
I,
today.
I, I think everybody is just curious. I mean, how many times have you asked really what God is? And in my book, I have something like, what is actual truth? And in today's society, it's, you hear a lot like, this is my truth. But what is actually true? Like, what is undeniably true? And obviously, when it comes to spiritual practices and whoever your higher power is, that comes on faith, but it's not something that's an absolute. And so I think it's just really people being curious of like, what else is out there? Because I know from the time that I was in middle school, I read a book called The Tao of Pooh because it was on Winnie the Pooh, but it was on Taoism, and I thought it was going to be like some easy read. And I read it, and I was like, I don't understand this. And then about 5 years later, I read it again. I was like, holy crap! Like this makes a lot of sense. It's about archetypes, and it's about turning negative situations into positive situations. And so for a little while, it was sort of like my own little Bible. It was kind of my first dip into Eastern practices. And so it made me think like there's more out there than this Judeo-Christian upbringing that I was brought up in. Like I said, my parents were really great. They wanted me to explore on my own. But a lot of people don't have that. And a lot of people were, like I said, told what to do. And especially the timeline thing. I mean, I hear so many people like, oh, I haven't gotten married or I haven't gotten children at this time. There is no timeline. I plan on living to 120 years old. I'm 45 right now. I've heard of people that have like changed their life at like 70 and are now like in their hundreds and are still like killing it, like really like doing well. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I think everybody should be on some sort of spiritual path, but like just realize it might change from day to day, from month to month, from year to year. And to stay curious, I would love using what I call the three parts of yoga is, jnana yoga, really like finding that path to wisdom and knowledge and introspection and to keep growing and learning. Once you've done that, you put it into karma, you start putting action to it. And then, once you kind of learn those, and this to me it's like the maha, it's the bhakti, right? And
Yeah.
so that's when that devotional path comes. But like when you skip the jhana part and you just take somebody's word for it, I mean, what does it really mean to you? And if you can't put it into action and you're just, like I said, you're just reciting something over and over, I think like, the story of Ashtavak,
Mhm.
the sage, where basically like these great scholars are reciting the Vedas and they're reciting the Vedas and they're talking about it or whatever, but they're just talking about it. They're not actually living it. They're not putting the karma into it, right? And
Yeah.
so when Ashtabak comes and he's crippled and they start laughing at him, he's just like, these people who I thought were the greatest scholars of all are not, because they only see like what he explains like the outside of a shoe, right? There's nothing that they see on the inside. And I think that's where a lot of spirituality is. And you just believe blindly sometimes,
Yeah.
without like doing your due diligence to figure out what you need. And I think that comes with your daily sadhana. It's like if somebody tells you that you need to go lift heavy weights and lifting heavy weights doesn't work for you, and you're gonna keep doing it, you haven't explored what you really needed for yourself.
True. Hmm. Got it. All right. So, what are some simple forms of sadhana that anyone can begin incorporating into their daily life?
Okay, so can you guess what the first thing that I do in the morning is?
I don't know, just get up and sit in silence, maybe.
The first thing that I do when I wake up is I smile. Because no matter how tired I am, if I smile, then I can't start my day off bad. So
Love that.
for me, I mean, if you can't put joy in your life, even if you're
Mm.
faking it, like, I mean, it's just you in bed. I mean, maybe it's your partner in bed or
Hey,
whatever, your
trust me, there's
dog.
this thing called laughter therapy, right? I mean, people
Yeah,
literally go to classes just to laugh.
right. And
Yeah.
so for me, like smiling is that first thing that needs to happen. Because like the way you start your day
Mm,
is the way your day is gonna go. So if you start it, you're like, oh, another day, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. Like even if you're faking it, it's gonna change something in your mind.
mm,
The next thing I do is I go and I sit still at my altar, meditate,
mm,
I do mantras, I do prayers, I do gratitude practice, a couple little light like twists and stretch, little sun salutations, like very light, all seated. It might take me 15 minutes. There's 15 extra minutes in the morning that I get up and I do all this. It's not a lot of time, but to me, it makes the rest of my day go extremely smooth. I also
got it.
think that there are like rituals that people need. So like if
Mm,
you need your coffee before you go meditate or your tea before you go meditate, like that's going to help you get to your altar, then that ritual of having coffee or tea needs
mm.
to be in there. Don't just say like, "Hey, I'm going to go meditate," and then you start hating it. And you're like, "Well, if I had my coffee, maybe I would like it more." And so,
Exactly.
this is
Because you're mentally so distracted, right? And I feel like that's so important. Or you're thinking about the coffee.
so yeah, so finding little rituals that are almost like transitions to the things that are part of your sadhana. I mean, that is part of your sadhana, but the things
Mm,
that like, your meditation and stuff like that. Obviously, movement, we've talked about that, it's medicine. It's not just helping you physically, it's helping you mentally and spiritually and emotionally. Nutrition, I'm not going to get into it because everybody has their own thing in nutrition.
mhm.
But
Yep.
eating whole foods, plain and simple. Eat whole foods. Don't eat processed stuff. We're the sickest country. We're the most wealthiest country in the world, and we're the sickest country. And it's extremely sad that we've let it get to this. And
Mm.
hopefully, we're on a different trajectory right now. But I think we're in such a hole, that you know we just need to like figure out how to get more whole foods into people's hands and say like, hey, stop with all this addictive stuff that is like really killing us. Relationships, I think, are a huge thing, in your sadhana. Um, I don't always agree that the five people you hang around with or what you are like because I'm nothing like my friends, and I'm okay with that. Like sometimes I live in the South. It's very hard sometimes to find more conscious connections. Like in Seattle, I'm sure I'd find a whole community very easy. So I think finding the right relationships and
Mm.
cultivating those relationships, even if they aren't on a spiritual journey, like let's say I am. Like for my birthday once, we sat in my backyard. I had like 30 people, and I made them go around and just say like what they were grateful for and what they needed in their life. And like
Mm,
some of these people had never done something like that, and they're like bawling, crying. Like it was like a release because I don't know if they never like spoke their emotions in front of that many people. So I think just, you know, I get sometimes frustrated. Like I don't have the conversations like I would have, like let's say on a India retreat or a yoga festival with like the people that are just like me. But it's also my duty to cultivate those relationships. You know, not force anything on anybody. I didn't force anybody to speak that day, but you know, when I'm having a conversation, instead of talking about gossip or a TV show or whatever it is, like let's talk about life. Let's talk about like what's really important. So
mm.
relationships are definitely important. Sleep, water, um, trying to get off of our phones, which, you know, I think that right now is like probably the hardest thing for
Mm.
everybody in this world. I mean, I look, I know you and I both have to do it. It's for marketing, it's for stuff like that, but it's like the mindless scrolling. And then look, I admit it, I do it, but it's not helping our children. And you know, as much as
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I'm fine, I know I could be doing other things with my time as well.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many things. They're all in my book. I'm not gonna pick it up and start like, you know, but yeah, I mean, just being conscious in your life. Think about it from, like I said, the time you wake up to the time, you know, you're in bed. Like, what are you using this time for? Because who
Mm.
knows when it'll end in this human experience for now, right? Obviously, I'm
Exactly.
not scared of death because I believe in reincarnation, and but at the same time, you know, I like the form that I'm in right now, and I hope to keep living longer. And you know, we have a lot of power in that. There's always something that can happen, but we have a lot of power in what our life is going to look like. Like I said, it's pieces or pieces.
Awesome. So I think to summarize that, so essentially you're saying sadhana is a spiritual practice and just like you said, and the first thing you do again is what you start with in your day is how your day is going to look like. So for you, that is waking up with a smile, and of course you have your mindfulness practice and silence and movement and all of that as well as part of your day, right? So I think that's kind of that summary of how, if anybody's takeaway. And of course your book Sadhana has a lot more in detail, I think, for folks to reflect and also read and think through their own journey and where they are. So awesome. Thank you, Mark. And anything you want to share with the audience? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. To me, is an extremely spiritual place. Most people think that it's Bourbon Street and Mardi Gras and drinking and eating heavy food. It's really an incredible spiritual place. It's like no other city in the United States, and I'm excited that you'll be down here in a few months. You can reach me on Instagram at Mark Berger NOLA. NOLA stands for New Orleans, Louisiana. And New Orleans or NOLA Yoga Fest is the Instagram for the Yoga Fest. It's September 3rd through 6th, Labor Day weekend. So you already have a long weekend if you come down to New Orleans. And then my book is on Amazon, and it's called Sadhana, a Modern Spiritual Routine for a Happier, Healthier Life. And yeah, just really proud that it's out, and I'm just happy that I get to do this type of work, and really excited that I got to come on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I mean, appreciate you taking this time out of your busy schedule and being here and sharing your journey. So appreciate it.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.